Hey everybody, Jerry here with a side-by-side comparison of two types of common overflows used to get water from your main tank down into your sump. Over to the right you have a nice Life Reef brand overflow that has dual intakes and is driven by these U-tube siphon tubes. Over to the right, that's how the siphon is maintained, and I'll show you that in a minute. And to the left you have the CPR brand overflow, also two 1-inch bulkheads. And up to the top left you see the aqua lifter dosing pump used to maintain the siphon via pulling air out and vacuum. And then as you look at the bottom you'll just see your outputs. That's 1-inch flex hose just to show you. And because the CPR I'm actually going to use, you see I put some gate valves to be able to control the flow or shut it off entirely. And that little standpipe there is to do what they call a Herbie to make it more quiet, and I'll explain how that goes. So over here you have the Life Reef, a very nice overflow by the way. I didn't use it because I like the footprint of the CPR a lot better, but I did use this for a while and it's really nice. So here you see the two halves. This side to the right with all the teeth on it, this is what goes in the tank. And so water flows over the teeth and collects in this portion here. But then you're like, okay, well, how do we get it over this wall and into this side where the sponges and stuff are, and then eventually down the drain, right? So what they do is they have these U-tube siphons, and what they do is they basically sit over the tank like this. One goes on that side, one goes here. Obviously smaller overflows would only require one tube. It's really up to you how you want to do it. So what happens is water would flow in, like I said, over these teeth and then trickle into this area, and then once this had a siphon in it, it would simply pull the water from this side over into this side and then down into this chamber and eventually through the sponges and down the intakes, right? So that works all fine, so you're good to go there, right? So now over here you have the CPR version, and this was run, like I said, via vacuum. So it's slightly different. The operation is basically the same, but if we turn this on its side, so this area is what goes in the tank. So it's kind of slim and has a nice footprint. So there you see the same sort of teeth that you had on the Life Reef brand, right? So this goes in the tank, but what happens here is they use siphon. They use air siphon, which is over here, and this basically you could just draw on it with your, by sucking on it with your mouth, obviously. What this does, this pulls air out of it. So as the water fills down here, you're pulling air, and it draws the water up through here, and then down here into this chamber, and then eventually in, right? And what happens is this aqualifter pump is what keeps that going. This is just a dosing pump which has an intake and an outlet. So what happens basically is you run air tubing from your siphon inlet on your CPR overflow, and then in the middle we have this nice little filter which traps a lot of dirt, you'd be surprised, and one end goes to the one side of the filter, and then more air tubing goes from the outlet to the intake of the dosing pump, right? So this is going to keep, dirty water from getting in from your overflow into the dosing pump. And then the output or the discharge of the dosing pump can either go back into the sump or into the tank or back into the overflow or whatever is convenient for you. And then here, of course, is the actual dosing pump itself. You can use many different types, but the Tom's Aqualifter works really well. So it works. I have it on 3 tanks so far, and it works well. That said, you always want to have a spare. So that's your basics on overflow. I hope that made sense, and I'll talk to you soon. Later.